2012 MacBook Pro was extra significant. It was the last MacBook to have user-upgradable parts, so why wouldn't Apple use SSD hard drives as standard? The fastest SSD on the market, it's the Samsung 860 Pro. I've gone for 256 gigabytes. So what we're going to do today in this video is I'm going to show you just how easy it is to change out the hard disk spinning drive in here for a solid state drive and show you the speed difference that we get from that, so that you can go out there and buy yourself a really cheap 2012 MacBook Pro with a hard disk drive, make that change, and build yourself a really quick, okay it's old, but a really quick MacBook.
7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Oh, this you crazy mother.
So, the first thing we want to do is create a bootable macOS Catalina drive. The way we're going to do this is using an external hard drive. You can also do this with a USB drive, as long as it's got 10 gig or more. 8 is probably not enough for the install file for Catalina. And I'll jump into the MacBook now and show you the process of creating that drive. In the macOS App Store, simply type in Catalina. This can be on any Mac, it doesn't have to be the MacBook that you're changing the hard drive on. Find the macOS Catalina app, view and press Get to download. If you're watching this video after macOS Big Sur or any future versions of macOS have been released, you won't be able to simply search Catalina in the macOS App Store, but you can search on Google for download macOS Catalina, and one of the first results on the search engine results page should be an Apple backdoor link into the App Store to download it. Once the install macOS Catalina box pops up, you can quit that and close the next box down too. In Finder, go to your applications and right click on install macOS media and show package contents. Click the contents folder, then resources, and just locate the create install media file. You don't need to open that. Do a search for terminal and open up the Apple terminal. I'm going to tile these windows so that we've got one on either side of the screen to make it easier to show you. In the terminal window, type sudo and then space. Then drag and drop the create install media file across. Then type --volume space and go back to the Finder window, press go to folder and type in /volumes and then hit go again. Here you'll be able to find the name of your USB drive, mine's called My Passport, and simply drag that into the terminal window. Go back to the terminal window and press enter, and it will ask for your password. Once you've entered your password, it tells you that it's going to erase everything on the USB drive. As long as you're sure that there's nothing important on there, you can press Y and then return. It will then erase the disk and begin copying macOS Catalina, and it will tell you when it's finished. This 2012 MacBook Pro here is actually running software that was restored from a previously corrupted version, and there are just a few things that are starting to creep back in, a few little problems. So what we're going to do is, rather than do a time machine backup onto the new SSD that we're going to install, what we're going to do is install a fresh version of macOS and just manually take everything that we need off this and move it onto an external hard drive. So I've already done that for the most part, but I'll just show you the method I sort of used. Obviously, first of all, look for all the obvious places, your desktop, your documents, your music, all that sort of thing, and move them onto your external hard drive. But then if there's anything that you think you may have forgotten, the best thing I find is going to About This Mac, to Storage, Manage, and then this will just calculate for you where all of the extra bits of data are that you might have missed. So for example, here we can see in Applications there's 8.17 gig. We can reinstall applications, that's fine, I don't need to take those over. In the bin there's 1.55 gig. Again, the bin, it's been thrown away, I'm not worried about taking that over with me. Documents, there's 64 kilobytes, which is tiny amount of data, so I doubt there's anything in there that I've missed. If we look in the file browser, it's just empty files for music, movies, desktop, etc. The iCloud drive, that can be logged in, you can log into your iCloud drive again and recover all that information. iOS files, we can resync iPhone and iPad, all that sort of stuff. Mail, again, it's all on the server, we can get all that back. And finally podcasts, that'll just be the downloaded podcasts again. You can download those from the podcast store and get them all back. So I think we've got everything and we are ready to take this apart. So, if you're going to go ahead and do the SSD upgrade that I recommended, I'm going to show you the tools you need, how to do it, and we're going to take it from here. So this is the screwdriver set that I bought. I think you can see on this camera here. This screwdriver set I literally just typed into eBay, Mac and iPhone screwdriver kit, something like that. And basically it comes with a whole assortment of screwdrivers that you can use to repair your iPhone, use to repair your Macs, all those different sort of things, because Apple tend to use quite small fiddly little screws with strange sort of like screw heads on them. So this kit is really useful. It's got, you know, tweezers and bits and bobs in there for getting into the really small parts on iPhones if you ever fancy having a go at repairing or replacing a screen on an iPhone. There's other kits available obviously, but this is just the cheapest one I could find, and it seems to work well. So I'll just show you the screwdrivers that we actually need. So the most important screwdrivers are this one here, which is a Phillips head, and it's, according to this, it's a 1.5 by 40 mil Phillips head. It is a really tiny little Phillips head on it. God, I'm saying Phillips head quite a lot now. And that's to take the back off the Mac. And this is what's called a T6 screwdriver, and this is to unscrew some of the screws that are inside the Mac. First of all, make sure you shut it down properly, make sure it's not on sleep or anything like that, and then flip it over. And then what we're going to be using is this Phillips head screwdriver, and just going around each of these screws and gently taking them out and making sure that we keep a track. I'm going to put them in order of exactly where they came out from, because some of these screws at the back are quite long in comparison to some of the really short screws that are at the front. One thing you've got to be careful of is not trying to ram screwdrivers that don't fit into these screws, because you can ruin the heads on them, and then it's a nightmare to get those screws out. So here we go. First one came out smooth as butter. That's what we like to see. And then comes the second one. You can see what I mean by this one being much larger. And I think this one is a longer screw as well. Yep. You don't have to get these out in the exact order that I'm taking them out. You can do them whichever way you want. Let's see. Another longer one. You don't understand how much having the right screwdriver set actually helps for this job. When I did the first MacBook Pro 2012, I actually did it with screwdrivers that weren't quite small enough before I bought this screwdriver kit, and I stripped more than one of the screws, and it is a nightmare to get those back in. As far as I'm aware, the shorter screws are all interchangeable with any of the other shorter screw holes. And again, the longer screws should be exactly the same, interchangeable with any of the other, with those three longer screw holes. But I'm putting them in this pattern anyway to put them back in exactly the same places, because it doesn't take any time, it doesn't take any effort to do so. So you may as well put them back exactly as Apple originally put them in. You can probably tell this screwdriver is slightly magnetised as well, just to lift the screws out of the holes. So now what we want to try and do is lift this back off. Actually, it's coming off quite easily. Now we can see the inside of the MacBook. There's quite a lot of dust on the back of this. In fact, there's a lot of dust in here as well. So I may well give it a bit of a dust. A top tip for laptops, for computers, anything like this, is absolutely under no circumstances should you be vacuuming the inside, because vacuums work on using static to suck up the dust, and static will fry a motherboard in seconds. So if you're going to try and get dust off, I wouldn't even try and use a duster, because that can create static. What I would try and do is use compressed air if possible, to blow away the air. If you haven't got compressed air, I'm probably just going to sort of blow air out of my lungs onto it, but you've got to be really careful then not to, you know, get any sort of water droplets or saliva droplets into the electrics, because again that's not great. I've done some dust removal in the MacBook Pro now, removed all the big chunks of dust because those are the ones that will cause us some issues. So I'm just going to slide this over here and just show you how to change everything out. Cool. So you may have noticed the leaning tower of wooden boxes holding up my GorillaPod thing with camera, looking down now onto the MacBook, so I can show you exactly what we're doing and how to do this safely and easily. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is make sure this is safe. So I've just earthed myself by touching a radiator. If you're working somewhere with carpets, try and do something like not wearing socks, because wearing socks can create a little bit of static and you do not want to touch this board and fry it, and that's it, that's game over. So the first thing we're going to do after earthing ourselves inside the MacBook is disconnect the battery connector, which is here. And what you want to do is unpick this battery connector. You're going to be really gentle doing this. But this is the battery, this is the connector, which is now disconnected. You don't want to bend it too much because this is a flex cable, and you know, these tiny little Apple flex cables inside these compact devices can break very easily. So you want to just lift it off the contact point so it's not touching, but also don't go bending it too much because you might break it and then you're really in trouble. So this is the hard drive here, and this is what we're going to be taking out and replacing for our SSD that we just bought. Whilst we're in here, I can show you a few other things. This is the optical drives. This is where your CDs and DVDs go in. Some people actually replace the optical drive with another SSD or another hard drive. You can buy a caddy that fits it in and you can actually plug it in. You can do this with this MacBook because it is actually a SATA-free connected optical drive. So if you had a secondary one, you can either increase the storage or you can use it actually as a RAID drive as well. Another really important thing that you can see in here is the RAM. 2 separate RAM sticks. You can see these little hammers on the side. These tiny little notches on either side that are just keeping those down. If you pull those out of the way, they pop up and you can replace them. So if I do that now, you can see that's just popped up, and it's very easy to take our RAM sticks out. This is actually 2 sticks of 4 GB, so a total of 8 GB. You can upgrade this to 16 gig. I believe you can go up to 32 gig as well, but we're sticking with the 8 for now. It's only a sort of personal use, home use laptop. It's not doing any video editing or anything like that on there, so that's fine. So I'll just reinstall this stick. Of course, the stick underneath is the same. You push the hammers and it pops up. What you want to do if you are doing any RAM replacements, is just align the teeth on here with the teeth on here. It's a little bit off center, the little groove in the teeth, so you can pop that in quite easily. Like so. And then it's just a matter of pushing it down to slide the teeth out and then pop it back in. So here we go. Just like so. You can see that the little hammer on either side is connected. Okay, so the most interesting part now, the bit that we've all been waiting for, changing the hard drive itself. So again, we're going to use the Phillips head screwdriver that we used to take the back plate off, and we're just going to take this little bracket. This bracket is actually holding the hard drive in place. So you can take the bracket all the way out. I've left the screws in place because it's easier to put them back in again. So this is now exposed to the hard drive. The hard drive itself comes with this little plastic tab on it, which we can pull up just to unseat it. Now we can see it's connected here to the SATA and the power to the SATA, and we just want to help that out of there. But remembering not to pull, because underneath we can see it's a flex cable that goes all the way under there, and it's again another very brittle thing that doesn't want bending at all. Perfect. So that's out, and you may think, oh no, that's that drive finished. We can get rid of that, but there's actually a lot that we need off this drive still. So the first thing we're going to do is take this plastic tab off the drive and stick it onto our new drive. And the reason we're going to do that is because it does make it, like you've just seen, easy to pull the drive in and out. So I'll grab our new drive, which I conveniently put back in the box again. Okay, so we can see our new drive sits like this. So the connectors are situated in exactly the same way. We're going to take this plastic tab off here and replace it onto here. Because this drive's a little thinner, it might not fit exactly, but we can just bend it around a little bit, which is fine. What we want next off this drive, we're still not finished with it, are these little screws on the sides here. And this is what we need the other screwdriver for, the T6 screwdriver. So we're just going to undo those. There's number one. And we're just going to replace them into this hard drive. These are mounting screws, not mounting as in a mountain, these are mounting screws. They just help it slot into place and stop it from jiggling around inside and vibrating and whatnot. So there's one. So that's our work done with that drive now, and we can install this drive into the laptop. First of all, we want to reconnect the connector, which is still here. Just put that in there. Push it all the way in, don't leave it half in, half out. Then what we want to do is slide it in, so these mounting screws go into there's little holes on either side here. Those slide into there, and then just drop it down there. So we've got the tab that we've just reapplied, and there's little mounting points there and there. Next, we want to reattach this mounting bracket back into the place it originally was with our Phillips head screwdriver again. You don't want to over tighten any of these screws, just do them until they're tight. Obviously if you leave them too loose you might get a bit of a rattle, but if you do them too tight you might start squeezing things and pinching things, which you don't want to do. Let's add the back plates back onto here. Just make sure it's seated nicely. And then we can begin re-adding the screws. So remember, these are all Phillips screws. The benefits of a magnetic screwdriver. So what we might do is actually go diagonal corners to get the strength back into it. Just helps the back plate settle onto it a little bit. And that is finished. Now I will deconstruct the leaning tower of wooden boxes and reset up the desk, and then we'll fire it up and I'll show you how to use our install drive to get you back up and running again with a fresh install of macOS Catalina. I'm just going to put the old hard drive in the old box, in the new box. I would recommend throwing your old physical spinning disk hard drive away because data can be recovered, especially in the way that we did this here. We didn't clear or factory reset it or anything. But even if you do factory reset it, data still can be recovered from spinning disk hard drives because when you delete bits of data, it still leaves the space there where the data was, and it is physically possible to get that back. Whereas a solid state, once it's deleted, it's gone, everything shifts up a little bit, and that's done. So we've got our boot drive here that we created earlier with Catalina. Let's plug that into the Mac. Then what you want to do when you start it up is press the Alt button and the power button together. Carry on holding Alt until you see some signs of life. It's on a white screen right now. And there we go. So we can see Install macOS Catalina as an option. We're going to select that. And it's gone to the Apple logo. So now we've got to the macOS Utilities menu. So what we're going to do here is go to Disk Utility, Continue. And in here we can see Install macOS Catalina hard drive, external hard drive that is. And we can also see our Samsung SSD 860 Pro. So we're going to want to erase this and turn it into our Macintosh hard drive. So we go Erase, Macintosh HD. That's what it's called out of the box. So we'll just stick with the same naming conventions. You can change the name if you want, it's completely up to you. So we're going to go with the settings that it recommends here, macOS Extended Journaled and GUID Partition Map, and then click Erase. This will just reformat the drive so it works perfectly for your macOS laptop. Perfect, that's done. Now we can close out of the disk utility. If you are restoring from a Time Machine backup, instead of doing a fresh install like we've done with the boot disk here, and you're in fact restoring from a disk but with a Time Machine backup, that's when you select that. Instead we're going to go Install macOS, Continue, Agree, Agree, and we want to install this on our Macintosh hard drive, and install. This recommends that you're connected to a power source. We've got 90% battery, but still it's worth doing, just in case. Because if this exits halfway through, you could cause some troubles for the system and have to restart everything again. And it's automatically began actually as soon as I plugged the power source in. So now we've just got to wait for that to install. The final thing we're going to do with this MacBook before it's completely ready to go with the new SSD, and we'll do some quick tests as well to show you boot up speeds, is enable trim. So if you go to Terminal, and in here you want to put sudo, S-U-D-O, space, trim, force, space, enable, enter. It'll ask for your password. It'll ask if you wish to proceed, yes, and it'll tell you it's going to be rebooting, yes. So why do I need trim, I hear you ask? The reason is that it essentially just improves the lifespan of your SSD. So if you buy a Mac that comes with an SSD pre-installed as an option, it'll have it enabled already. If you buy one with a hard disk drive like these ones where you can swap them out for an SSD, you just have to enable it yourself. If you don't enable it, it means that your SSD will get worn out more quickly than you'd expect it to. But with it enabled, especially on a drive like the one I've chosen here, which is a real pro drive, it'll pretty much never wear out. Or it'll definitely last longer than the MacBook will, I'll imagine. So I'll just show you how to check once it's done its restart whether trim is enabled. You go to About This Mac, to your System Report, and SATA/SATA Express. And then down here you can see the name of your drive that you just installed, the Samsung SSD 860 Pro, 256GB. And down here, trim support is yes, so that's on. And that's what we're looking for. So I'll do a last couple of tests. I'll show you the boot up time of this and compare it to the boot up time that we took beforehand from this, and then the boot up difference in time between the i5 MacBook Pro 2012 versus the i7, which this has got. Thanks for sticking around till the end. If you're interested in buying a MacBook Pro Unibody, tell me about it in the comments. I'd be interested to see how many people are sort of following my advice on this one, because the Unibodies, especially the 2012, has amazing I/O. You still got a disk drive if that's something that's important to you. I think the cheap price is really good because obviously a lot of people don't realise that the processor isn't the thing that's necessarily holding them back. That it's actually just the hard drive, which is a really easy swap, as we've just seen. So see if you can find one cheap. See if you can find a cheap SSD, get it sorted out. This is a great way to get into the ecosystem. This is a great thing to give to your kids, to your parents, to anybody. Anybody can get into the Apple ecosystem with a machine like this, and then eventually move up to other models as they come down in price later on. I hope you had fun watching this and learned something. So I'll see you in the next video. See you on the flip side.